take the 25 to 34 age group, household formation has fallen between 2001 and 11, as you can see in the graph. Market returns trend scenario is already suggesting an improvement in that over the planned period, and is in notable contrast to the 2011 base projections. The market signals adjustment for that age group effectively sees that red line, you've got the colour version, rising to meet the purple line at the top by the end of the planned period. Now, the reason that isn't modelled through into every age group is that for a number of age groups, we look at those in their 30s and 40s. The projections, the market returns trend projections are already showing a notable increase in household formation rates for those age groups. And then indeed, I think it's probably just worth touching on some of the highest age groups, those aged 70, 85 and over. And for those age groups, we're assuming higher household formation rates than shown in the latest projections. Now, I wouldn't expect those age groups to actually to be particularly affected by the economic recession and recessionary based factors. Many are existing owner-occupiers. And so, to counter, we may have a discussion about some of the younger age groups, but to counterbalance that, I think the overall approach is pretty positive in terms of the expectations that it makes for trends in household formation moving forwards.
I have noticed that other people wish to speak. I just want to make sure that I follow through a discussion and then I will come to you. But I have seen people speak. Speaker.
Very quickly, it's in relation to the housing strategy for the county, which I believe covers Herefordshire and Shropshire. And I'd just like, sorry? Right, well, we've got the 2012 to 2015 document, perhaps that's out of date, but regardless, I'd just like to specifically ask, there is obviously a difference between a strategy with aims, objectives, etc., and an evidence base which says this is how many affordable houses we've delivered through other avenues. This is the Mr. Ireland, plethora of avenues available to us in the future, and these are the numbers that will be met, and I've yet to see that evidence. Certainly, I think it's paragraph 29 of the housing needs assessment guidance within the planning practice guidance, which states that local planning authority should consider increasing its overall housing requirement to meet affordable needs. I'm not sure that has taken place. Mr. Ireland refers to a policy on, policy off approach. His is a policy off, which is the 15 400 to 16 200. Yes, my understanding is that continues to rely on the private rented sector. So I'm not sure how to reconcile all of those.
Just on that last point, Mr. Ireland, you said that it doesn't.
Sorry, it is a Herefordshire Shropshire strategy.
Okay, thank you.
2012.
Yes. It's just on the points that were raised, the last one. Go on, the last point. Just the last.
The point was essentially that where in the evidence
yes,
does it specifically talk about the level of affordable housing overall that will be met, how that relates to full objectively assessed needs for affordable housing, where will be the shortfall in terms of the private rented sector, over what time period will the reduction in reliance on the private rented sector take place, what proportion will be reliant on the private rented sector by the end of the plan period. I know there's a number of some consternation across the room about this, but it's a serious point with 2 out of 3 households in Herefordshire requiring affordable housing. And I'd just like to get to the bottom of this in terms of their evidence base. And I'd quite happily accept that and take a review of that evidence, but I've not been able to locate a coherent way that's been taken into account. And if there's part of it within the housing strategy, then surely that should have been assessed in the round through the sustainability appraisal. So it's just a few points in respect to that.
So, I did ask you that point before, actually, about the housing strategy and how that was taken into account. You have answered some of those questions. Is there anything else you want to say?
No, I don't think so. The issue in terms of overall numbers, I think, and the approach, I've talked through in terms of the relationship between the two and models that are not comparing apples with apples. I explained the approach we've taken. I've explained that the council has a housing strategy which looks at the range of mechanisms to deliver affordable housing. The council website has published what that's delivered over the last year since that's in place. Mr. Baker, I'm afraid, didn't mention some of these detailed issues in his representation about asking for specific figures, nor in his matter statement for today. And so I'm afraid I just don't know.
I have asked you some of the questions anyway, as to the private rented sector and where that fits in, and to do the housing strategy. Mr. Orton, I'm just going to take your point.
Just thinking about it's just a small point, I won't labour the point. Mr. Ireland articulated the graphs on figure 8.1.13 very well and demonstrated the complexity of the household formation rates. But what I would just ask now, when we read about the mechanism and determine whether the mechanism is effective in the context of figure 8.1.1.3, you also refer to figure 8.1.17, which shows the effectiveness of the mechanism and based upon the population profile. And at the moment, that effectiveness is showing it's only affecting 2.3% of the population growth. So while the mechanism itself may be sound in principle, when it's applied, is not effective. So I'll just ask, respectively, Mark, could you read those two tables together? And if there is a reconsultation on household formation rates and the implications of the mechanism, the market uplift on that, perhaps a more effective market uplift mechanism could be investigated.
The statistics that come out, when they come out, February, the understanding of the planning inspectorate is the 27th. I'm not completely sure if that's right or not. I will then ask the council to look at those and to take them into account in their considerations of objectively assessed need and any follow-on considerations that they might have. And I would ask that then to be published on the website. We'll have dates and times for that, and I would then ask for a consultation to take place on their response. So that's how it will be. It might be, we will do it all by written representations. It might be that we will have to have another hearing session depending on the outcome. But that's just the way of it. That's just the timing. That's the stage of everybody. So that's how that will be dealt with. Can't sort of prejudge that. But that will be the way in which we'll deal with the figures that come forward.
Thank you, Inspector. Thank you very much. It's a point of clarification. Will we be considering affordable housing again under SS3, which is where I suspect many others wish to make comments? And I'm a little concerned that, can you give us guidance on the dividing line between what we've discussed this morning
Yes.
and how much, in effect, you will rule out in the afternoon, because we've already discussed it? Thank you.
Right. The session on the detailed policies is looking at the justification for those policies and then their effectiveness. Today's discussion is looking at how affordable housing has affected the objectively assessed needs and the number, the sort of target housing numbers. So they're slightly different, but I'm quite happy in the affordable housing session for you to raise any points. I mean, clearly there's I know people who are not sort of in the industry that it's quite complicated, and I want you to make sure that you feel that you've made any points that you want to, but quite happy to pick up the detailed points. The points I want to look at today are how they're affecting the overall numbers. So are you happy to wait in the individual session?
Yes, I'm just slightly curious as to what that does to the timetable.
Well, we have time to look at the individual policies.
Forgive me, you mean the published timetable, which includes the policies, we've already drifted away from it?
Well, the
Because we're not
details, do you mean the
considering-
details?
Yes, I do.
The detail
Yes.
policies, and specifically,
SS2, SS1,
yes.
wording we've suggested.
Yes, going to
I've no
forward,
idea where
yes.
this is going to be considered. Because
Yes,
I've come here this morning
Oh, yes,
to
no,
prepare,
yes,
offer wording,
yeah, yes.
so when will that happen?
Well, I think that will actually happen today because, in fact, I'm going to come to you to talk about SS2. I'm just exploring at the moment the level of the figures. So, sorry if there's any confusion, but we'll see how we get along and what points are that you want to make. If you're looking at SS2, then it's today. If you're looking at the wording of other policies or detailed policies, then we'll do that in the section on the detailed policies.
Sorry, I'm forgiven, I didn't do that. This afternoon it's SS3.
Yes, but we will just continue the discussion. I want everyone to have their say. We'll just keep going now and see where we get to. Councillor Powell?
Thank you, Madam Chairman. Just following on from that, my understanding is that the detailed policies of what we've been already digging into sit in H1 and H3 more than in another SS policy. And I assume that that will be borne in mind when you get to those. My procedural point is that by my reckoning, the developers' side of this debate, if you will, has occupied us for getting on for 90 minutes. And I just wonder whether you are intending to close this session at 1 o'clock or whether we will have proportionate time for our side of the debate.
Yeah, we will come on to your side of the debate, and if we have to start in the afternoon, then we will. With all these matters, today is the most difficult, I have to say, in terms of timing. And we will, if necessary, have to rearrange another session later on if we have spillover. But I do want to make sure that everyone has sufficient time to put their points to me. Is it Councillor Norm? I can't see you.
Thank you. Your earlier answer might have answered my question, but I really wanted to, at some point, this might not be the right point, clarify what we're talking about when we talk about affordable. We seem to be assuming we're talking about what house costs to buy or to rent. I think we've got to sort that out, particularly if we're looking at real needs, to what it costs to run it, for example, and the energy efficiency of it, even the wider costs that are related to the amount of travel involved and where you get your house, or the amount of carbon or putting, all those sort of things. Where will that be clear? I can ask questions about it now, or probably to where that would be more relevant.
This in relation to policy SS2.
It's related to housing.
The numbers.
Well, I suppose it's not directly there.
It's
It could be if we're talking about what the need is.
meeting the need.
Yes.
Meeting the affordable housing need. It's that point.
Yes.
Okay.
Really, what is affordable? That's my point at this stage.
I am going to come back to this things. I just want to finish the exploration of why there are representations about the numbers being too low. Mr. Baker, I'm just going to ask you if you have other points.
It was just a very quick point in relation to Councillor Norman's point. I think that in terms of new build affordable dwellings which meet current government standards with regards to energy efficiency, etc., that's obviously best placed delivered through the provision of market housing through more typical means, rather than a reliance on a private rented stock where you have no control over the condition of the state of that stock. So it matters in the round, not just about numbers, but about provision and the way that affordable housing is delivered and the way that affordable needs are met.
So now we're going to look at the views that are put forward by other people, that those numbers are too high, and that there are constraints, environmental constraints, which means that they should in fact be lower. And this takes us really to matter 5. It's encompassed in matter 5 about the other considerations that need to be taken into account. And so I am going to ask Councillor Bowers, you've got your nameplate up. Did you want to?
Thank you, Madam Chairman. Well, I'm happy to go now if that's appropriate. I have 3 observations and questions. Would you like to take those as one bundle? I think very interesting to have heard what we've heard from various parties so far. My observation about the setting of the overall limit at the upper range of the GL Herman range, or somewhat above it, irrespective of any projections, however robust or not, for economic growth during the planned period, I would simply observe that the plan ought not to be over-projecting new homes growth as a way to fund what it deems to be critical infrastructure. In other words, there is a clear link in the plan, taken together with the infrastructure delivery plan, between the projected housing numbers and the need for what in my view is higher than necessary overall number to fund this infrastructure. That's my first observation. I would be interested to hear Council's response to that. My next question relates specifically to paragraph 3.28 of the core strategy, where it is claimed that, quote, building of new homes for people of working age and younger families can be achieved. My question is, with its high lifestyle assets and relatively low property prices for retirees and older people, how can this aspiration be achieved without some form of covenanting? And if so, is any covenanting of that sort legal or deliverable? And my third question is in specific relation to the housing numbers projected for Hereford and the environmental and other constraints there. Hereford is described as the most sustainable settlement in the county, and I think that is highly disputable when one considers the constraints on sewerage and water supply, which, to the best of my knowledge, have signalled a limitation to the appropriate housing growth of only 3,500 rather than something in excess of 6,500. By comparison, levels allocated to Leinster in paragraph 3.33 of the core strategy 2,300 in the plan period are well above the Home Report recommendation to the Council of 800 to 1,500 for the entire Leinster HMA. And again, with reference to my first observation, I would contend that these could well be a consequence of the need to fund a southern link road in Leinster by means of this excessive housing allocation. So I will leave my questions and observations there for a moment. Thank you very much.
Yes, this is point 6 about the right type and scale in the right place, in part. It's the relationship between the infrastructure and the housing numbers. The objectively assessed need is a different assessment. That's done in a particular way, and the planning policy guidance tells you how to do it. So it's then following on from that, you're saying it's the upper end, and is that to do with the achievement of the infrastructure? So to put that point quickly to the council, it's really going to answer that.
Yes, thank you, Madam. Also, the target in the core strategy was set up at pre-submission stage. At the same time, just before the affordable housing plan study was produced. But it was reassessed on the basis of the affordable housing plan study, and it was considered that that target should be retained to allow for obviously meeting the upper end of the objectively assessed need in terms of jobs growth, and to provide flexibility in terms of providing for affordable housing in the county that we much discussed this morning.
So the suggestion, Mr. Fowler's suggestion is that the infrastructure has driven the numbers rather than the numbers driving the infrastructure. So
that's not the case. It's a requirement to meet the objectively assessed need in terms of the National Plan Policy Framework, and that's what the councils are aiming to achieve in the policy.
The second point was about
Working age families.
yes.
Yes, I mean it's best to describe it as an aspiration on target to try and increase the number of working age families in the county. We have an ageing population. It's an imbalance that we're trying to address. It's common in the rest of the country, I accept, but it's certainly an objective in the plan to address that issue. And we're hoping to achieve that through the type of housing that we're building in the county.
That's well, so I'd like to pick up that point again when we come back to look at some of the detailed policies and how the type and size fits into the overall consideration of more detail.
I'd be grateful for that, Madam Chairman. Thank you.
And then we have the something again that I think that we'll come back to about the fresh water, about the water supply.
Constraints inherited.
Yes. We will come back to that in more detail again when we look at Hereford in much more detail. But it's just about your concerns about how that affects.
My concerns are about the overall numbers and the projected split between the city, the market town and the rural areas before we get into those specific policies.
Yes, the council maintain that Hereford is the most sustainable settlement in the county. It's the largest settlement. It's the focus of river and rail and road transport and private health services. Directing development there prevents or has to promote those sustainable transport modes. It reduces the need for people to travel further afield. And the NPPF itself requires us to manage patterns of growth to make the housing facilities. There are constraints. These are fully acknowledged in the core strategy through the place shaping policies and the general policies of the plan, including SD 3 and 4, which specifically relate to the regional management plan.
This is Morawiecka.
I'll just voice your name. I'd like to follow up on Mr. Powell's point, and also the comment that Mr. Baker made earlier about the difference between strategy and evidence. Now, whilst they say that Hereford is sustainable and is the most sustainable location, it was recognised way back in the DASTS report in April 2010 that there were significant constraints on locating housing and going, at that point as they were under the West Midlands Regional Spatial Strategy, growth status to acquire funding. And that it was highlighted in the report that was done for the three counties again, that, or three areas of the marches, that there were significant constraints and they needed to be addressed back in 2010. I'm very concerned that whilst they might have a strategy, where is the evidence that the housing figures, A, are deliverable, sustainable in not damaging a European SAC, and also where is the evidence that Hereford is more sustainable than Ledbury, Leominster, Ross and Wye, or any of the other areas? Because historically 40% of the employment is across the rural area. Herefordshire County is a very rural area. It's always had widely dispersed population. And I think this is important, especially when a lot of people have to travel to Birmingham, Worcester or Cheltenham for health services, education, other things. And I think that needs to be taken into account. I would have thought from the nature of the Western Relief Road and the fact that it then requires the council, that the SEA shows that it will not meet the environmental objectives because of the CO2 emissions and all the other issues, that Hereford is not the most sustainable location. And I think again, we go back to we had high-grade agricultural land mapping, that the exercise doesn't seem to have been done to inform where is sustainable locations across the county for housing.